Good afternoon. It's Wednesday the 26th. And I'm asking a question. Have you received your resurrection life? Have you been resurrected along with the Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ? Christ is not his family name, you know. He's not. His mom and dad weren't Mr. and Mrs. Christ. Christ is just the way of saying Messiah. Christ is the flesh of God. And that's what we all are. I know you don't understand that, from not reading the Old Testament. You don't read Torah. You believe rabbis that don't do either. They study what each other say, and they all are talking to each other in a bubble of rabbinical Judaism. If everybody's talking together and you're all looking at each other with suspicion as who's really Jewish, what else do you have to do to prove you're Jewish? And you got and I'm asking a question. Everybody, Radio Lampico and those over on Facebook today, have you been resurrected? Are you alive? Inside? Is your spirit man alive? Or are you a dead man walking? Folks, that's what the people that aren't born again are. They're dead men walking. And a lot of people that they think they're Christians. They do Christian things. They go to church and all these outward things, But inside they're dead, full of creepy crawlies. What Yeshua said of the Jewish people. It's actually every religious person is full of dead things. They have no life. They have no life from God. They've never heard of being born again. If they heard of it, they don't have an idea what it is. This is the time of year when we're celebrating the rebirth of the world. When Yeshua was resurrected, that was a new creation. A whole new being was born. That was God's Son being brought back to heaven, being resurrected after bringing life back to the human race. Now, everybody had the possibility of accepting it or rejecting it. All God was doing was giving everybody the same choice that Adam and Eve had. That's what you have because of the resurrection. Now, you could choose to believe God, or you can choose to disbelieve Him and follow Satan. There's no other route for you to go. You're either going on Satan's road or God's highway. Satan's highway is a lot easier to follow. There's a lot more people with you. Listen, if you follow the highway to Jesus, you're following a rare route. And it's not an easy road. In fact, the Bible says it's very few that find the opening to get into it. Listen, that opening that you come into the being born again, that opening is tiny. You actually have to pass through the wound that was put in the side of Jesus where the blood and water came out. That's even a smaller opening than when you were birthed the first time into the world. By your flesh. Now you're coming out in spirit. If you believe you've come through that wound and you're covered with that blood, and that blood is what resurrects your life and the world, every other human being ever was born or will ever be born is covered by that blood. There's no more need for sacrifice. There's no more need for another temple. The only thing that another temple will be used for is the Antichrist, and he's coming too. Those of you that are in Christ, that you are now baptized into Him. You're baptized by the blood and the water. You're now in Him. Just as the Noah had his family on the ark, well, that was a pretty big door for all those animals to get in that ark. But God shut that door. That door was closed. Noah didn't lock the people out. They locked themselves out. If you're not willing to come to Jesus, Yeshua, and take his free salvation that you can't work for, and if you try to do any law keeping to work for it, you're cursed. That some law that you're trying to keep is cursing you to death because you can't keep it perfectly. You think you can keep law perfectly? You'll never be able to. You're not going to keep it to the standards that God has. His standards is, if you're a white Southerner in America or a prejudiced person in Ireland or anywhere else in the world, or you hate Jewish people, you hate people of color, you think they're not as human as you are, you're a better species or something, don't even try to go to God with all that. He's going to bounce you out of there into the deepest hell. You won't ever believe it. You're not carrying that stuff into heaven. Those people that you're prejudiced against, those are your brothers, sisters. If you don't see that, we pity you for being so blind. There's a lot of self-righteous people out in the world. They have no idea who they're offending. They don't even know that Jesus is Jewish. You hate Jewish people, you're hating Jesus. He even said if you're abusing real Christians for being real Christians, you're abusing him. Because we are his body. That brings us back to Adam. Since we're all descended from Adam, how did the world get so messed up? Because he was a perfect person. He didn't ever sin. He wasn't counted as a transgressor as Eve was. Read that, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 13. So if you are trying to say, that Adam was evil and brought evil on the world, then you're going against the Word of God. You're not going to be able to follow that and follow the Bible. You think in that train of thought. You got to come back and understand that Adam was made in God's image. Adam was breathed into by the very Spirit of God personally. He was to be God's flesh in this world. And his job was to overcome Satan by faith in God. And he did that. He didn't believe Satan. He was there with Eve as she went and talked to Satan and listened to his lies, and she believed them. And then her flesh took over and said, hey, that's pretty good looking fruit. That might be good for our belly. I think I'll give some of that to my husband. And he ate it. He didn't argue with her. There was nothing Adam could have done to stop her. If he had stopped her, she would have had no free will. Adam wasn't in control of her at that time. People are equal. This is before that flesh, that Eve was Adam's flesh. Adam was God's flesh, but Eve is, and every woman is the flesh of a man. Every woman is from where his children come from. And they're his flesh, and it's up to your flesh to follow your mind. God is the mind. The Godhead is a mind. He's a spirit and he's flesh. Just like you are. You have a mind, right? You have a spirit and you have your flesh. You know that your flesh can be in conflict with your mind. It can be in conflict with your mind and your spirit. That's the way we're built. We're not simple like animals. Animals don't have to sit there thinking about whether they should eat a certain plant or not. It's ingrained into them from birth of what to eat and what not to eat. They don't have kosher laws. They have no need for such things. Only human beings are made with all these choices that we have to make. We have to be in control of ourselves. God wants to put you back into control. He doesn't want more control over you. He doesn't want laws over you. He wants you to stand up and be a real human being. So those people out there that aren't born again Christians are not real human beings in the way that God designed people to be. They're marred. They're rejects from the factory. And they've chosen to stay rejects. Well, listen, God's Bible is a factory recall. That's what the Bible is. It's a factory recall on everything He created. Now it has to go back to the manufacturer and be tuned up. Take all the old parts out that weren't built right. And listen, what you inherited from your mother, you weren't built right because you inherited Eve. All that Eveness, all that whatever you think is right in your own mind, that's what you'll do. That's not the way God designed you to be. He designed you to be in love with Him and in love with everybody around you. You can't manufacture that kind of love. It has to be implanted in you. You have to realize what God has done for you. Then you got to realize that you're not special. I hate to tell you, all you people out there, think you got money, think you got smarts, think you got it better than other people. You're not special. You know those people that have the highest education, the highest intelligence, the most money, the most well-off people in the world, they're the hardest to reach for God. They're worse than a prostitute or a drunk in a gutter. They're the hardest. Very few of those people will make it to heaven. They won't find the way. They're not looking for a way to heaven. They're looking for a way to live longer on earth because they're in control here. And they want to avoid every thought about the final days. Well, folks, this wake-up call the last year or so, now we've seen almost 8 million people die. Probably going to be over 8 million people. Probably 9 million people are going to die before this is over. Because all the hard-headed people that wouldn't wear a mask, that wouldn't social distance, this is not going away. Because they won't get, now that there's a vaccine that supposedly Trump pushed to get in place, they don't want to take it. Because now it's Biden's vaccine. That's how stupid people are. You're just plain stupid. Listen, there is no medicine that was ever made that didn't have side effects on somebody. Everybody's got a little bit different DNA. You got screwed up genes in you. You know, if you get this COVID stuff and you survive, that you're probably going to be sterile. Even if you were to try to have children, you'd only be halfway successful as you're any person born before 1970. By 2050, Western man will be unable to have children. You'll have to be doing it in a dish. How romantic. So it's over, basically, for the Western world. Those people living in China, they haven't been sucking water out of plastic bottles for 40 years. You know? You know the reason that people drink out of water bottles? Because they are of fear of the water. They have a right to fear the water. Have you ever look at a water sample from your city? You know it's got arsenic and benzene and everything in there. And they allow it, so many parts per million. It's not pure water. Not anything like the water that people drank back in Adam and Eve's day. If this level of pollution was in the world back then, we wouldn't be here. We'd be extinct by now. The human race is going extinct. We've done it to ourselves. We think God is in control of this world. No, God put Adam and Eve in control of this world. Us. We're supposed to take care of this planet. Guess what? If you abuse it, you lose it. Just like your body. You abuse it, you lose it. You don't have to really do anything wrong. You were intended to work. You were intended to walk 9 or 10 miles a day. That's the way your body was designed. People that had to go hunting all the time, they're walking. You see people hunting today, they put out a bunch of feed corn and sit up in a tree waiting for a poor deer to walk by and take the bait. That's like shooting fish in a bucket. That's very sporting. I see the same guy picking up bags of deer corn at the Walmart I was working at over the holiday season. Blowing my shofar out there. He said, that's what we're buying it for. We're buying it to bait deer. And he wasn't buying it to bait deer to take pictures of cute little deer either. I was raised with a group of boys in our Boy Scout club, happened to be run by avid hunters. Men that had served in World War II. When I was raised, we all had guns by the time we were 12. If you didn't have your own gun by the time you were 12, you were a sissy. You had a mama running your family. My family built guns. We're in you look at the almanac of gun builders, my family name is in there. It's on my mother's side. Her family name is just almost like Kissinger. Remember Henry Kissinger? His family was from the same area as our family in Switzerland. That's where my mom's family was after the war. They were still okay in Switzerland. Swiss just stood back and made blood money during the war. Those nice Swiss people. They built weapons for Hitler. They stayed out of it. And they hid took all the stuff he stole and hid it out for Hitler. And they all planned to come back. And guess what? They are back. The same people that murdered 6 million Jews. A lot of those were children. This world, and the reason I'm talking to you all the time is this world is not the way God intended it to be. The human race is marred. That's the reason he had to have his own son. That means his own son means somebody that's out of him. And just like a man makes a son by an admittance coming out of his body, the admittance that comes from God is his spirit. He put his spirit into the flesh that would be Adam. He breathed into him his spirit and made him a living soul. And he told Adam not to eat of the fruit of that tree in the middle of the garden. That tree was the law tree. God didn't want to have laws over man. And Adam didn't eat the fruit because of that. Once Eve made her decision, he's locked in. He has to save her. He has to stand by her side no matter what. That's what a husband's supposed to do for his bride. God doesn't tell us to do anything he's not willing to do first. He's showing you God's leadership. God's Son in this world saved his bride by keeping her alive. He was able to go with her in the wilderness and have a family. And he taught the son that would listen to him, Abel, how to keep alive, to do a blood sacrifice. Take a lamb and sacrifice it. Shed its blood. But Cain couldn't see that. He was of his mama's spirit, the spirit of Satan, the spirit of unbelief, the spirit of rebellion, of thinking you're equal to God. If you don't become born again today when I offer it, you're of that spirit of Satan. You're Satan's children. You're in rebellion against God. If you stay in rebellion, he's got to kill you. He's got to do away from you. You have to get away from his kingdom. He doesn't want you polluting his kingdom. That's why you're held here on earth. That's why you go down. Satan was cast down to earth. Spiritually, heaven is not a physical above you. It's above you because it's higher than you are morally. God wants you to come back and be a real human. People that take care of their environment are real humans. That's what our native peoples knew. They knew they had to take care of the environment. They knew they had to move around, not wear out the soil wherever they were living. They moved. Our people, we plant ourselves in one place and wear the soil out. That's what happened in America. We were growing all that tobacco and all that in the east, and we wore the soil out. And as we went across the whole west, we wore it out and took down all the tree breaks and everything and furrowed the land all up and lost the topsoil. And we ended up with a dust bucket, dust pail, dust bin. And that's what that soil was blowing from the west all the way to Washington, D.C. The clouds became black with that dust. The Dust Bowl. And if it wasn't for the invention of fertilizer right now, the world would be starving. They were only keeping the soil alive artificially. The only reason it can grow anything. It's like try to take a bunch of crops and grow them on a beach somewhere. Try to grow crops in sand. See what you get. Sand is just a part of what the soil makeup is. It's also got clay in it. It's got plant matter in it. Also has little things called worms in it. Our soils today don't have that. You got to go over in the forest or places that haven't been farmed and dig up some soil and look at the difference. It's a whole different color. That soil where they grew tobacco, that's all yellow looking. Devoid of anything any creature could live on. There's no worms in that. So our health and everything else is declining because we're living on plants and vegetables and all that are not getting their full value of nutrition. There's nothing in the soil. So we're not only killing the planet, we're killing ourselves off. And there's certain politicians that are bought out that are helping. They're helping destroy the world. All for money and greed. You cannot live that way. Simple as that. You can't live that way. You've got to get this straightened out. If you don't, we're over. I'm down to my last 5 minutes or so today, and I want to invite you. I want to invite you to stop being a rebel. C.S. Lewis, he said when the Allied armies came into France, there was two kinds of French people. There were people that fought in the French resistance, and there was everybody else, which is 90% of the country, went along with the Germans, became collaborators. They used their trains to transport all the Jewish people out of France. Just about every Jewish person they could find. They moved them out. If it wasn't for righteous people that protected some Jewish people, there wouldn't have been anything left in Europe. I know. So I'm asking you to stop being a rebel. Stop being an enemy to God. And that's what you are if you're not born again. I don't care whether you're in a religion, you think you're doing the right thing. If you're not totally dead to yourself and risen in Christ, you're a rebel. You're trying to work your way to heaven by going to church or something, joining a church, reading your Bible, believing in your Bible, believing your preacher, believing your grandma and grandpa's religion. None of that matters. That's all window dressing, folks. Unless you have a personal relationship with God through Yeshua. You can't have a personal relationship with God Almighty. You are never going to see Him. If you did see Him, you'd fry like a bug in a bug zapper. God has put His Son here, one just like us, that we could listen to Him. We could understand that He was a flesh human being that died just like we died, that suffered everything human beings suffer. He suffered the rejection even of His own men that didn't believe in Him, like Peter. So you have all come through all kinds of issues, and none of us haven't gone through this life without Him. Come and lay those all down at His feet. Lay your life down. Consider yourself dead on that cross with Him, and go to Him and come in faith out of that wound with the blood and the water and be born again. Just like Eve was born originally from the original Adam, as he slept, we come out of the Adam that was laid down, and we're all coming out of that wound, and today you're born again because you've accepted that. If you've done that today, we say, hallelujah. We're saying you are now born again. You are never going to suffer a loss. You're going to heaven. Your place in heaven is secure as long as you believe. You're not locked in. You can always disbelieve and run away. God's not going to force you to go to heaven. But if you believe, once you walk away, you've got no way back. That's the sin that you can never recover from, is unbelief. You don't believe, you're dead. And there ain't no coming back. So you come right now, and we say amen and amen with you that have come. Let us know your decision. And Angel, thank you for being there in the studio like you are every day and helping us get the word out. Amen, amen. Okay, well, my question here is, again, are you alive? Remember Frankenstein? It's alive. Are you alive in Messiah? That's the only way that your spirit, man, is alive. Otherwise, it's the spirit of Satan. You have a flesh spirit that's washed and tossed about by every wind of doctrine until you become born again. And you have a live spirit that can interact with the Father and the Son. That's what Yeshua said. If I'm in you and you're in me and I'm in the Father, we are all one. That's what God's will is, for there to be one new man that's alive in Him. That's the way He created Adam and Eve. They had a personal relationship. They loved each other. Until Satan got messing around. Just like somebody comes into your family and steals your wife. Well, Satan is the other man. He thinks he's in control of this world. And he was thrown down here. This is the prison for him. And just like the strong guy in a prison, he's messing with the weaklings, the other newbies that are coming down here. Well, the human race was put down here to prove themselves, to prove that we could overcome Satan. And that's what your life is about. You're overcoming Satan. And overcoming, the big step is overcoming him by faith. If you don't get that straight, you will never understand why all the problems are hitting you in this world. You know, good things happen to people, but bad things happen too. And you're in a war zone. Don't you realize this is a battle? It'd be like, you're going over on D-Day to attack Europe, and you think you're going on a summer picnic somewhere. Hey, the only thing right about that, it was June. And you're going to the beach. Yeah, but you're going to the beaches at Normandy. Don't expect a picnic, folks. People in this world are trying to kill you. People in this world are fighting for everything in life. And they're going to take it from you. You're in a job, you got people vying for the top position, and they're going to do what they can to stop you. They invite you to a Christmas party and then get you drunk and acting foolish. So you're not considered for a promotion. How do you like that? Or if you're a woman and men go up and approach you and be friendly to you, and if you're friendly back to them, word will get around that you're loose. How do you overcome that one? If you push them away from you, then you're just being the bad kind of woman. If you're assertive, they call you the B word. This world is not an easy place to get along to, not easy to navigate. Always trying to reach people that have, and I think it's common among people that think they're Christians. But you're thinking you're Christians just because you have a dogma. You've never actually thought things through in your own mind. Ask yourself, do you know where Jesus came from? Why do we call him the Son of God, and why do we call him the Son of Man? Which is he? That's you got to look back. Why did God create the chosen people? My Jewish people don't realize why they were chosen. They have not a single clue. It's real sad because as a young fellow, I used to want to get to know Jewish people and ask them questions. I never met any one of them that ever read the Bible. They were wanting to get away from it as far as they could get away from it. Every one of them. They told me the synagogue was just a place to meet, go get a free bagel, and do some business. It's just tradition. You go there because of tradition. It was as a dead could be. By the time the 60s came along, Christianity was pretty dead too. The only person that had any liveliness to it was a guy named Billy Graham. But he only worked with the evangelicals. Those Methodists and all those people didn't get into that much. They did not talk about religion. They were not talking about getting people saved. That's not their deal. Was social gospel, how to fix the world. It's pretty sad that the message got so far away from what we were told. We were commissioned to be officers in the army of God, and here we are still running a soup kitchen or something. You got to get out into the battle. And if you're not in battle, the battle's coming for you, and it comes for your kids. And that's what happened. The 60s took over the American family and took the children out of the church. Listen, by the time 65, 68 came along, you didn't find kids in church. Not in the mainline churches. There was non-evangelical ones. There's Presbyterians and Methodists and especially Martin, the Lutherans. People like that. And the people like that are the ones that hate Israel. They're divesting their investment in Israel, things like that. Get involved in BDS. Not buying stock in companies that do business with Israel things. They were going after Caterpillar because they were using Caterpillar tractors to knock down the houses of terrorists. They call that ethnic cleansing. When you kill somebody that's killing your people, is that ethnic cleansing? Is that what our police are doing when they go after lawbreakers in America? Ethnic cleansing? I'll tell you what. There's always going to be lawbreakers. But when when your prisons are 2/3 full of people that are only 20% of the population, you know something's wrong. You're using the legal arms of your government to strangle people out. Keep breaking up their family. You can lock a person up for a month, and they've lost their home. They lost all their possessions. They're thrown to the street. Do we care? No. White people don't see any of that. So that's the biggest guilt problem we got, and that we don't feel guilty about, is not caring, being apathetic. That's the biggest disease in Christianity. You're just apathetic. Get all worked up over political stuff, though. That's anti-Christian. Christians didn't used to get involved in politics. That wasn't until the guy from Liberty University, came along. He came after Billy Graham got close up to all the different presidents. Then came Falwell in the 1980s, and the churches really became, like if you weren't a part of that political party, you weren't even a Christian. You could it all had to be on one thing. Are you against abortion? Well, abortion is legal under the Constitution. You can't stop people unless you call that child a human being. From the minute that the cells come together, you cannot stop abortion. That means every embryo that's in a womb is a human being. It has a right to life equal to with a mother. And, in Christianity, they have laws, and the Catholic side anyway, that you can't have a way to stop a life. You can't have any thing to prevent, having a child born. There is no safety stop on you. If you're going to be with your wife or a woman, you're there to create a child. So that's where you got to put a stop to things. If you're not married to somebody, you cannot have sex with them. If you create a child, you're responsible. And we know you. We got your name. We got your DNA. If the woman will give up the name of the person that was with her, then you have to support that child. that woman needs to know that she's going to get at least $50,000 from you to support the child. You think that would help? That would help get your name, find out who you are, and go after you. You're a man. You're the one that's responsible. You've got the power. You've got the strength. And you know that most of these women that are getting pregnant are by people that are 10 years or more older than the girl. They might be as old as their father. And sometimes it's their own brother or cousins. It is sick. We have to stop it. All this business that I'm dealing with is I'm talking to people that are not able to understand who God is. If you don't believe in, my statement to everybody, Muslim or everybody, if you don't believe in the Son, you don't believe God. You believe in a God that's made up by some Pharisee somewhere. That's not who God is. The God that I believe in, who do you think, whose finger was writing the words of the Ten Commandments? Who's there? Who is that person meeting with the people like Abraham, wrestling with Jacob? Who do you think that man was? Well, Jacob called him God. And that man called Jacob Israel, changed his name. You think an angel has the power to change your name? Listen, my Jewish people, wake up. Wake up to the truth. God is more complicated than you think or any Muslim thinks. You can't keep thinking of God as though he's like an idol, just making commands of you and you're his servant. No. He wants a real relationship with you. And until you come into that real relationship, you're dead. You're a dead man walking. You're walking around in your flesh with no spirit. Other than of an animal. You have biological life, but you have nothing with God. You cannot understand him. He cannot talk to you. I know it may not seem fair to you, but the way things are jumbled together, you have a whole bunch of people out here that have more Cain in them than Abel. There's a mixed race of people, Cain and Abel. And actually Abel was killed, so that it was Seth that went on and started the religious side of the family. And all through the history of man, there's been certain people that God could relate to, and they could hear him, and he could hear them. They had a relationship. People like Noah. Noah proved that God was a good carpenter. He knew how to show Noah how to build an ark, have it last. Well, the ark that we are in now is the body of Messiah. He became our ark. We came out of that body. We were born again in that body, and we were rescued from the sea of this world into him. So we are all placing our lives in his hands, into his body. He raised his body back up again, and that includes all of us that believed. That's the only thing we can do is believe. So you got to repent and be baptized. Repenting means you've turned around and now you're believing in him. You've repented right there by not believing in Satan or yourself. A lot of people don't know that believing in yourself, in your own actions, is going to save you, is believing in Satan. Satan is in you. That's where you get that attitude that do laws and to go to heaven. That's Satan's laws. He's the one that brought law on man. He knew that man couldn't keep law perfectly, and they would have to be killed. God requires perfection. And if you go against God, the wages of death. There's no way around that, folks. No way. You're going to heaven if you are not in Him. So think about that. There's no way to get there. There's no keeping of the law that's doing you any good. It's keeping you alive down here. It's keeping your traditions alive. Is that what you want? You want to live your life with traditions and miss heaven? My father used to say, I've done everything that I know to do. Yeah, you may be, so you're not a drunkard like your father was. You've kept working and supporting a family. Even after 2 other wives either cheated on my father or died, he still, at 40 years old, got married again and had a family, finally. A family that he knew was his. And he was a nice, gentle, joyful person. But he had doubts about God. And how could God allow the Holocaust to go on? He didn't allow it to go on. He created America to step in and stop it as soon as they could do it. They rescued Israel. An American president who had read the Bible through 6 times, Truman, voted for Israel to become a nation. I think that was the deciding vote. And they did. And the world hadn't heard anything from Arab people. They didn't stand out in the world. They didn't have any nation that they could speak of Muslims. We didn't know anything about Islam back in World War I or World War II. Nobody ever met a Muslim. They never heard of a Quran. Never. The Islamic, the people I know, that imams and all that, they can't believe that nobody in the world ever heard of a Quran. They weren't printed in English until the 20s. Nobody. I went through humanities class, and about the only thing we knew were Jewish people. They didn't believe that Jesus was God, was the Messiah. What Jesus is saying is he's not God. He is the Son of God. He's also the Son of Man. He was born to be the king of the world. He came up through a family line where he had the right to be a king. That's how God had to do it. He had to have the chosen people, and he had to arrange for this person. He designed it that this person, Yeshua, would come out in a family, and he presented Joseph, who picked him to be the father, who would adopt him as his son and give him his name, and the right to be the king of the country. And the family line all through Mary or Miriam. But only thing Mary could do was produce an egg. There still had to be a father. And that's what it says in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. To us a child is born, and unto us a son is given. A son, the sonship that came through God. That spirit created the maleness and the type of the blood and all that in that child. That was his child, and he had his nature perfectly. He wasn't a mixed nature. So, one from the childhood, he had knowledge of the Bible. He didn't have to be going to a rabbinical school. He didn't have to go study under Gamaliel or something. He didn't live there anywhere near Jerusalem anyway. Gamaliel wasn't in Nazareth. But some of my Jewish friends have different, they've been told different stories, make them feel more comfortable with them. God doesn't care if you're comfortable. He cares if you believe him. If you don't believe him, you don't love him. He desires, number one, that you love him with all your heart, all your mind, and all your strength. Everything that's within you. Everything. If you don't do that, you're breaking his commandment. Now, how many people that think you're Christians do that? You know what? God knows that you're going to have doubts. God puts you through things happen in this world. This is the real world here. We're in a world where things knock around in the heavens. There's comets. There's, things going on. It's dynamic. You have an earth that's floating here on crust that's floating on top of, 8-mile thick crust floating on thousands of miles of molten material. You got a nuclear reactor at the center of it. Our Earth is just one step from being a star. That's why we have gravity. And because you have gravity, you have ability to fall off of things and die. This Earth is just like a big machine. You get around complicated big machines, people are going to get hurt. People found that out when they farmed. But you know what? When people were working with horses, they got trampled by horses. They got kicked by horses and killed and everything else. Horses weren't perfectly safe either. There's no safe way. People fell off their horses and died. You ever see Gone with the Wind, that perfect little daughter Brett had? Dead. When a person, when you lose a family, or lose even one child, that can knock everything out of a person, especially a person with no faith. Imagine Job. You know why the story of Job was put in the Bible? Probably the first one written. Even Job, even after losing all his family, all his children died. All his animals were stolen. And his health, he even lost his health. He's still able to stand in chapter 19. You go back to verse 21 to 25, and he says, I wish I had a pen to write on a scroll. I wish I could engrave it in stone. I know that my Redeemer lives, and I'm going to see him with my own eyes, even after all my skin is dissolved, and I'm going to stand on my own 2 feet and see this Redeemer. Folks, do you believe Torah? If you're a Muslim, if the only reason you have Islam is you're going by the Bible. You've taken parts of the Bible out to make another book that you call a Quran that is denying the main part of the whole Bible, which is salvation. And you've gone back to Judaism. And you think by having stiffer laws where you cut people's hands off for stealing it, and kill them in the streets, stone them to death, right in the middle of Saudi Arabia. You can look at a movie on Netflix about that, Saudi Arabia. The truth. They've got hidden cameras taking pictures of people dying in the streets with their justice. The Islamic people feel that Israel got knocked out of the Middle East because of its sin. It didn't follow God's law strict enough. They put laws in that have teeth. You have no choice but follow the law or you're going to die. And of course, they don't know whether the husband is lying against the wife and he's just saying she committed adultery because he has ideas about it, because he's probably cheating on her, I've never heard of a faithful Muslim man. Maybe there are some, but you're able to have 4 wives. How many women do you need? The point here is that your religion is not going to save you. I don't care how strict it is, how the letter of the law it is. It's not going to make you perfect. That's why in Judaism we still have Yom Kippur. I don't know what you can do as a Muslim to atone for your sins, other than we understand people blowing themselves up so they can have an idea they're going to heaven, or they're going to go to their garden with their Hugh Hefner lifestyle, all the naked women around and sloshing around alcohol and all that. That's the Muslim heaven. More like a Hugh Hefner. They want to be playboys. That's not God's heaven, and that's not God's religion. And Allah is not God. He's the wannabe God. He's Satan. He's the God of war. And that's what all the religions have, the God of war. Catholicism was a God of war. Constantine put together Christianity to help his soldiers win the battles. They believed. Sort of like a coach at any football team or baseball team or whatever. You know that if your team won a championship in the past, it's a lot stronger team, and it gets even different players that want to play for it than a team that's never won a pennant, never won a Super Bowl. You want to be on a winning team. So what Muhammad created was a winning team. And it was even really after his death that they went outside of Saudi Arabia. Muhammad never left the country. He never went to Jerusalem. Jerusalem's not mentioned once in the Torah, in the Quran. Not a word of it. In fact, the mosques that were in Muhammad's day were not even pointing towards Mecca. They were pointing towards Petra, like 21 degrees further north, almost just a little bit southeast of Jerusalem. Mecca is way down south. It's another 600 miles, I think, south on the Arabian Sea. It's not even in a place of trading, except by water. It's closer to be a seaport. So that's what we're dealing with. Men's ideas and men's religions that they've cobbled together. That God wants to have His will be done. That's His prayer. That His will be done in earth as it is in heaven. In order to do that, you have to align yourself with Him. spiritually. He's a spirit. You can't come to him or believe in him unless you have his spirit within you. And how are you going to get that? By following the law? The law is a school teacher. It's to show you you can't follow the law and be perfect. And now God has taken away the temple. Israel was never in its history without a temple for 2,000 years. Folks, get over it. You're not going to get a temple back that's going to be doing anything for God. He says you're his temple. He must be in you. You must be in him. And we're all together in the Father. The Father's the mind of God. I always say it's the executive branch of God. God is a spirit. He's not a physical body. So Yeshua used to ask, what spirit are you of? Are you of the spirit of the flesh? This world? That's Satan? Your mind and the way you think can easily slip and be in that world. It's much more simpler to be of that world. That's your natural state. Doing things what comes naturally makes your body happy. And that's what you're pleasing, is your flesh. If it feels good, do it. Well, it doesn't feel right. It never will feel right to a non-born-again person to try to do the things that God's commanded you to do. To love your enemies? How are you ever going to do that in your own self? How do you forgive yourself to start with? That's where you have to start. If you can get along with yourself and understand that you're not perfect and you are able to forgive yourself, you can work around and say, well, how am I different from anybody else? They're just like me. Are we going to forgive ourselves? Then we can forgive others. When Paul come into the world, he went back to his family background was Greek. So he spoke perfect Greek. That's why the Bible's written in Greek, the New Covenant. The Jewish people, the synagogues, and if you read Acts, Acts 17, after passing through Amphipolis, Apollonia, they came to Thessalonica, where there was a Jewish synagogue. As was his custom, Paul went into the Jewish people, and for 3 Sabbaths, or Shabbat, he debated the scriptures with them. He opened them and gave evidence that the Messiah had to suffer and raise from the dead, saying, this Yeshua, whom I declare to you, is the Messiah. Some of them were convinced and became attached to Paul and Silas, as were a large number of the God-fearing Greeks, and no small number of leading women. But some of the Jewish people became jealous, taking some wicked fellows to the marketplace and gathering a crowd, they stirred the city into an uproar. They attacked Jason's house, trying to bring Paul and Silas out to the mob. When they did not find them, they instead began dragging Jason and some of the brethren before the city officials and shouting, these men have upset the world. They turned the world upside down. They've come here too. And Jason welcome them, and they're all acting against the decrees of Caesar, saying there is another king, Yeshua. Hearing these things, the crowd and the city officials were confused, but after receiving bail from Jason and the rest, they released them. As soon as it was night, the brothers sent Paul and Silas to Berea. Upon arrival, they made their way to the Jewish synagogue. Now these were more noble-minded than those in Thessalonica, because they received the message with goodwill, searching the scriptures each day to see whether these things were true. Therefore many of them believed, and as well quite a few prominent Greek women and men. They started to attract people that weren't Jewish. This is years into, where Paul was working. 15 years after he, first met the Messiah, after he was resurrected. The Messiah stayed in this world. His spirit didn't leave. His physical not with us, but his spirit is with us. He works with you. You're in tandem with you. Otherwise, you can do nothing. But when the Jewish people of Thessalonica learned the word of God had been proclaimed by Paul in Berea, they came there too, and agitating, inciting the people, and then the brothers immediately sent Paul away to the sea, but Silas and Timothy remained there. And those escorting Paul brought him as far as Athens. After receiving an order for Silas and Timothy to come to him as soon as possible, they left. Now while Paul was waiting for them in Athens, his spirit was aroused within him when he saw that the city was full of idols. So he was debating in the synagogue with the Jewish people and the God-fearers, as well in the marketplace every day with all who happened to be there. And also some of the Epicurean and Stoic philosophers were conversing with them. Some were saying, "What's this babblers trying to say?" While others, he seems to be a proclaimer of a foreign deity, because he was proclaiming the good news of Yeshua and the resurrection. They took Paul to Areopagus, saying, "May we know what this new teaching is that you're talking about? For you are bringing some strange things to our ears. So we want to know what these things mean." Now all the Athenians and foreigners visiting there used to pass their time doing nothing but telling or hearing of something new. So that's where your News Central was. That was their Fox News of the day. They were hearing the breaking news. That you always see at the bottom of the page on the TV, breaking news. People want to hear what's going on, but they don't even know what's happening. The world wants you to be looking over here, and what's going on over here, to take your attention to what's going on right in front of you in your own house. Now all the Athenians and foreigners visiting there used to pass their time doing nothing but telling or hearing of something new. But Paul stood in the middle of the Areopagus, and said to the men of Athens, "I see in all ways that you're very religious." This is like a big arena, and he's standing there on the platform, and it's made so people way up in the top can hear him talking just as well as somebody sitting next to him. But Paul stood in the middle of the place, and he said, "You're all very religious." And that's what I'm telling people. Everybody I'm talking to quite often, they're religious. They got something they believe. Even all these people that are atheists, that's actually a religion, folks. You have a religion of not believing. And you have leaders of that religion that are your deities. You know? You have your Stephen Hawkings and so forth. All stood in the middle and said to them, Men of Athens, I see that in all ways you're religious. For while I was passing through and observing the object of your worship, I even found an idol, an altar there, and the inscription said, For to an unknown God. Therefore what you worship without knowing this, I proclaim to you, the God who made the world and all the things in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made by hands, nor is he served by human hands, as if he needed anything. And that's where Islam is. They're trying to serve God, as though he needs something from you. The God that I see in the Bible is the God he's a family man. He wants his family returned to him. His family's been stolen by Satan. Because of that, he has to do what a man has to do. He's going to get you back if it costs him his life. You expect God to be less of a man than he intends for us to be? No, he's the example setter. That's what I say. That's why Adam ate the fruit. And he told God, he didn't lie to him. He said, You gave me the woman and I ate the fruit. Like, what were you expecting me to do? Let her die? And I would go back to you and beg you for another wife? He knew that wasn't right. So he ate the fruit, stayed with Eve. Well, that's where Jesus, Yeshua, is with us now. His spirit is here in the world. You can come to him anytime. When I'm asking you to come to him today, to believe on him, to trust that spirit. That spirit has been released in the world because of what Yeshua did, because he gave his life. And just like that spirit was originally put into the body of Adam, God wants to return that spirit to you, the Holy Spirit. You have biological life, but you don't have his spirit life, his eternal life. We lost that. We have so many years to live and we think we're done. You're 90 years on earth. God looks at it 9 months. And you're in the womb of Mother Earth. This is where you're at. And when you get birthed out of this womb and your body dies, you go to your real home. And you're either going to go in the front door or you're going to go into the trash bin, where Satan and all his other people he's absconded with are going. Satan knows where he's going. That's where all the hatred against Jewish people are coming from, because Satan knows it's Jewish people that in the end are going to go win the world. Jewish people are not done. They're just getting started. Well, imagine having 144,000 different Jesuses in the whole world. Can you imagine? 144,000 people with the power to heal and raise the dead and everything else. Walk in the world. What do you think is going to happen? We have 1,000 years to go with Yeshua as a king in the kingdom of God in Jerusalem. He'll be on the throne. There's not going to be anybody else. Yeshua is going on that throne. He's coming back as a king and a ruler. He's going to have a rod of iron. You're going to be in one line or the other. You're going to be with the goats, or you're going to be with the sheep. You ever heard the song the children sometimes sing in school? I just want to be a sheep. Abba, Abba. That means daddy, by the way, in Hebrew. Avi is father. Abba is daddy. Our God wants to be your daddy. He wants to be with you and hug you and lift you up. He wants to lift you up to be with himself. No matter how far down you've gotten. He'll give you a new, brand new, clean life where you don't even remember the old ways. You do not dwell on those. Even things you thought were fine will come back to you, and you'll see them now for what they really were. Just selfishness. Look at all the pride men have for having a different girlfriend any night they want them. Or they got pride in all their stuff. So, Paul was telling about this unknown God. The God who made the world and all the things in it. That's the God I'm preaching. You don't need to serve him. He has everything. He wants you to go out and change this world. He's setting you up to take over Yeshua's job. You are now in the family business. Yeshua is our brother, the firstborn of many brethren. That's who he is. We are not God. We're made in the image of God, and we are doing things of God, and we're telling people the words of God that he puts in our mouth. We don't have to think of what we're saying. I don't write down what I'm going to say to you when I'm talking to you. I'm telling you what's out of my heart. Just as the way Paul was talking to people. He didn't want to offend people. I don't want to offend my Jewish family. We are raised in a certain way. We're raised to believe that, and that's it. But you cannot have a relationship like that. God wants you to know him in a different way than you know Abraham Lincoln or any other great man. He says here, he himself gives to everyone life and breath and all things. From one he made every nation of men who live on the face of the earth. From one. That one was Adam. He started with Adam. And that life that he gave Adam, and Adam had faith. Adam didn't believe Satan. Adam was something he could work with. So he followed that DNA of Adam all the way through the family of God. That's why he created the family of God. Because certain men stuck their head up and made it a family. And they made traditions and all those other rabbinic laws to keep you together as a family. At least you had the same uniform on. That was the idea. Get you uniformed up. Uniformity. That's what they've always had. At least 3 divisions of Judaism. From one he made every nation. He set appointed times and boundaries of their territory. They were to search for him, and perhaps grape around for him and find him. Yet he is not far away from each of us, for in him we live and move and have our being. As some of you, your own prophets, have said, for we also are his offspring. Since we are the offspring, we ought to not suppose the deity is like gold or silver or stone, or an engraved image of human art and imagination. Although God overlooked the periods of ignorance, now he commands everyone everywhere to repent, for he has set a day on which he will judge the world in righteousness through a man whom he has appointed. He has brought forth evidence of this to all men by raising him from the dead. That's the evidence. So I'm going to send that copy of this over to Kiwasa over in Uganda. My friend Josephat Freeman lives there, and he's a great preacher. He ministers even in mission trips to America. I don't like that. Men from Africa coming to America to win lost souls. How do you like that? Talk about a total flip around from 100 years ago. There's no bigger one than that. Anyway, if you look in Isaiah 42:5, Deuteronomy 10:14, Psalm 115, verse 16, you look at Genesis 2:7 and Job 27:3, 17:26. You look at from one he made every nation. So that's Deuteronomy 32:8 and Job 12:23. In 27, he's saying they are to search for him, or perhaps grope around for him and find him. Yet he's not far from each one of us. That's in Deuteronomy 4:7, Jeremiah 23:23. And verse 28 here, for in him we live and move and have our being. That's quotes from Ephemedius and Aratus. And the next one is Isaiah 40:18 and 19. Since we are his offspring, we ought not to suppose the deity is like gold or silver. Then 31, for he has set a day on which he will judge the world in righteousness through a man whom he has appointed. And he said he would do that in Deuteronomy chapter 18:15. Said one will come along just like Moses. He's going to be coming out of a royal house and laying down his deity to lead the people. And that's who Yeshua was. So that's in Psalm 2, verse 9 and 8. And also Psalm 96, verse 13, and 98, verse 9. So he set a day on which he's going to judge the world in righteousness, through a man who he has appointed, by raising him from the dead. Now he's shown evidence. He brought forth evidence to all men by raising him from the dead. Now when they heard about the resurrection of the dead, some began scoffing. But others said, "When we will hear from you again about this." And Paul left from their midst, and some of the men joined with him and believed. Among them Dionysius, a member of the council of the Areopagus, a woman named Damaris, and others with them. So this story of the Jews is written by the famous historian Josephus. I know that's turned around to you, but that's Josephus. That big, thick book. That's the history of the Jews. And in that tells about Jesus. That, he was born right after Jesus. So he was alive up until 100 years after the turn of the Common Era. So, and he had been part of the military in Israel, and he was adopted by a Roman family, and they changed his name to Flavius Josephus, or Josephus Flavius. So, and he says, and if you want to look it up somewhere, go online, look at you can look this up. You're looking for chapter 3, page 379, and it's chapter 3, verse 3. And this is book number 18, from the banishment of Archelaus to the departure of the Jews from Babylon. Okay, so chapter 3, and it's verse 3. Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And that's what he's saying, he was the Messiah. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of principal men among us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at first did not forsake him, for he appeared to them alive again the third day, as the divine prophets had foretold these things, and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. And the tribe of Christians so named from him are not extinct at this day. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with Jesus as a historical figure, and I was asked by this Kawesa out of Uganda, are we to believe him just because of the miracles? No. You believe him because he's what he's doing today. Do you think Israel will be back in its own borders without fighting a major war? Without being wiped out by over 350 Muslims that are surrounding them? With every army supported by every high-tech weapon that Russia could give them? See, Russia wants to defeat Israel for the same reason, as he goes against their atheist backgrounds. Defeating the Jews is also the main thing that Satan needs to do in order to stop the truth from coming out. Because he knows the Jews are going to come out. You don't know which one. You can't pick them out exactly. But I'm doing my best to stop Satan in his tracks. I don't want him to take any one of you. There's no reason for you to keep following a loser. Why don't you follow the one that lives, that wants to bring you into his kingdom? You know, if God had shown up riding on his high white horse as a commanding general, how many people would follow him and know him in such an intimate way as the way he came in, as a baby, as a person that could relate to you, then talk to you and answer your questions, and the way Yeshua did it. God did it that way in order to have a personal relationship with you. That's the way he started with man in the beginning. He had a personal relationship with Adam and Eve. He spoke to them. They could hear him. He could command them. God set Adam up in the family business of taking care of this world. God needs man because God is love, and men are the part of himself that he loves. God loves you and forgives you because he forgives himself. If he had anything to forgive. But he's a righteous God, and it demands a awesome sacrifice in order to set things right. The justice of God demands it. He can't be God without justice. It's a terrible justice that his own son had to die, but his expectation from that is that you'll follow him and you'll take up, just like in a war. If people were fighting in Civil War, they had this one guy carrying the flag, another guy carrying a drum, another guy carrying a bugle. Well, if one of those guys went down, somebody else would pick that drum up or that bugle or that flag and carry it on. And he'd go plant that flag on the top of the next hill. And they win it, hill by hill. So you see in that Iwo Jima where the men are putting the flagpole up against the strong wind out there. Good place to have solar farm, huh? Folks, this is what it's about. God is going to win. He's going to bring you back. Those that are willing, whoever's willing to come with him to heaven, he's opened the door for you. He wants you to come with him. He doesn't want you working for it. Then you're actually working for Satan and doing what Satan wanted. That's how I've never heard anybody tell you that, but I'm telling you the truth. That was Satan's tree, the tree of death. Satan knew that anybody that bit the fruit of that tree would die. The only way to stay alive is try to be like a Hindu. Go sit up next to a tree and don't eat, don't move, don't think. Just go, and they're trying to overcome their flesh. Some of them will sit there and just not eat and die. Trying to overcome their flesh. You cannot do it and live. God wants you to have his spirit in you, so you automatically do it. You have a stronger pull on you to be righteous than to not be righteous. Because you now have his spirit within you. You like that. You know that they found out that dogs would rather have the praise of their master than food? You know that? Imagine a dog that's working in the police department or something, or military, and he's coming up on a person that are trying to subdue, that's maybe trying to kill the other policeman that's with him. And then the guy throws a big juicy steak out there, and that dog stops to eat the steak. Imagine a dog like that on any police force? Or how about at your house? The burglar comes in and they throw some food at the dog, and he stops and it becomes a pet, you know? There's a lot of family pets like that. They're not trained to be guard dogs. The real guard dog's not going to do that. He's going to chew that person up. Well, God wants you to be his sheepdog. That's what I'm trying to be. I'm trying to be a sheepdog. I keep yapping at the heels, and some people will get it. Those of you who are willing will come and get it. And I'm asking you now, this is the last few minutes of the day, I'm asking you to stop being rebels. Stop your religions, all of them. Stop thinking that anything you can do is going to get you saved. Those things that you can do are filthy rags in front of God. God gave his blood, his own son's blood. And he said, I have the power to lay my life down, and I got the power to raise it up again. He raised it up, and he's back up to heaven at the right hand of the Father, because he's God's right-hand man. He's the flesh that operates in this world, that made everything in his image. That's why you look the way you are. That's why you have a body and a mind and a spirit, because God has that. God is set up just like you. We are set up this way, and the layout of the temple is the way we are. It's our spiritual self. You have an outward way of understanding the world. You have vision, you have hearing, you have taste, you have smell, you have your sensations from your skin. But you also have a deeper part of you that's your emotional side. Okay? You have an outward emotional side where you're maybe just friendly with people, or you're either your enemies or friends. You have a closer inward circle. That's your family. Your deepest circle is the Holy of Holies, and out in your soul. That's where you really live. And that's where we are allowing God to come into your soul and make you a living soul again, just like he had done with Adam. That's what God has to get into you. His spirit needs to be in you. And it can't be in you until you accept what Yeshua did for you by giving his blood. Now you are cleansed, and God's spirit can come into you. And the more you ask for his spirit to make himself at home in you, the more able you'll be to function in him. It's what you allow. And you have to work on it. You have to allow more of him to come into you as you grow from faith to faith. You might pray for somebody someday, and their cold goes away or whatever. Or they have a pain that you can see them get healed. God wants you to function on such a deep level that we can't even imagine what he's got in plan for us. But sitting around on a cloud someday and with nothing to do, that's not his plan. We have a whole universe to go into. This is just the beginning, folks. A whole new world's coming. I'm asking if you believe this, if you can believe that this Yeshua laid his life down on that cross so you can come on that cross, take that old you and eliminate it, lay your life down, and be risen together with him. That you're baptized into him, into his suffering. You understand everything he did for you. Now you're risen again in him, and you have a new spirit man something you never had before. You had Zoe life. Now you have a spiritual life. Now you protect that spiritual life. You drive away all the fiery darts of Satan by your faith. That's why you have a shield of faith. Welcome to those who've accepted him. Thank you for listening. Use this message to reach other people. That's all I ask. Reach as many people as you can on your Facebook. I appreciate you coming today. And we'll hopefully see you again on Shabbat. We're having a Sabbath that we're going to have Shabbat Shalom on Friday. We'll see you again on that day. Thank you. We'll talk more about the resurrection, everything that led up to that, and I know now that if you've prayed along with this, you asked Yeshua to come into your heart, that you're now restored, and you are a living, full, completed human being. You're completed as a Jewish person. You're completed as any other person. You have a spirit living within you now that you can communicate with. You're back as a living soul. Amen to that, right? Now we can go and learn to work together and bring others in, and you have ability to talk to Jewish people, and you can talk to Islamic people, because now you can explain where Yeshua came from, that he's just the returning of Adam. God had the body of Adam was already in the human race. All he had to do is put his spirit back into that and make that embryo, created a living being, just like he did originally with Adam, made one with inside Mary that was a full human being that had all the knowledge of God. And that's who we follow. That is our God. He is the fullness of the Godhead. Now we know him as our brother, the kinsman redeemer. And we are here to take up his life and to do what he leads us to do. And our works are now for his glory. No longer are we working to save ourselves. We're in. Now it's up to us to lead others in to his kingdom. Okay? And that restore their inheritance so they know they have a place in heaven with him forever. And he starts out doing that way. That's not what all other religions do. God gives you back the kingdom of heaven first. Now he expects you to be worthy of it. All right? So thank you for coming today and paying attention to this couple hours. And we'll see you again on the Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom. And today we say Shalom to everybody. Amen and amen.